everybody. Today we're going to continue talking about carbs, except for we're going to move on to more complex carbs, and or otherwise known as starches, and a quick and easy way to differentiate the difference between a simple carbohydrate and a complex carbohydrate. Just has to do with sugar molecules. A simple carbohydrate just has one sugar molecule and it runs through your system pretty quickly. That's like pure sugar and things like that. And even fruit is a simple carbohydrate. And then there are complex carbs, which are made up of several sugar molecules, and sometimes they take slower time to go through your system, depending on which ones you pick. So when you say complex carbs, most people just think bread, and bread is just one aspect of it. It's just one aspect of grains, which is part of a bigger aspect of starches and complex carbs. So when we talk about bread, we talk about, obviously, I think everybody knows you shouldn't be eating anything white. I mean, don't get me wrong, when I go out to dinner, I love the bread basket, and it's usually a white piece of bread I will go for. But in terms of my daily life, my kids eat whole wheat. I am not one of those people that thinks that wheat is evil, although I choose not to eat it for myself because of the gluten. I don't have a physical problem with gluten, but for me, I find that when I have too many grains and too many wheat products, I tend to get a little depressed. I tend to get a little cloudy in my thinking. So for me, I've just decided that I do gluten-free. Now that doesn't mean I run out and I buy all gluten-free cookies and all that other stuff, because that's not good either. It just means that I choose things, if I do eat a grain, it's a gluten-free, or I choose some non-grain varieties ways to get my complex carbs. So some of the things I choose are Ezekiel bread, which I really love, especially the cinnamon raisin. It's not gluten-free, but it's sprouted grain, which is a little better for you. And then they have all kinds of wraps, gluten-free. My husband actually uses them. I am not a big bread person as far as using my complex carbs. I try to use them elsewhere. Because for me, I just really don't feel full from using them. I usually usually a little hungrier after I eat that. So where do I get my complex carbs? Here's more grains. This is quinoa. Brown rice is a big one that I use. Let's see, I use gluten-free oatmeal. Sometimes I use the steel-cut oats. Sometimes I use the rolled oats. I like these brown rice organic cakes. I put like a little bit of almond butter on them in the afternoon. There are things like barley, feijoa. There's lots of grains out there. Pasta is something that honestly is not in our diet a lot, even though I am Italian. I grew up with Sunday dinners. I miss them. For me, if I'm going to have pasta, I would rather have the traditional kind and just have it as a treat meal. That's just my personal preference, but there are gluten-free varieties like brown rice pasta. I've had quinoa pasta that isn't too bad, so that's that. And then, these are the kind of things I stay away from, which are like the chips and the crackers. Because for me, I find that if I have chips or I have crackers, I can't stop, or I just feel like, I didn't get filled by what I ate. Like if you tell me I'm only going to have 8 crackers from this, I'm going to be very angry. So I just choose to not eat it on a daily basis. So let's see what else here. So that takes care of the grain portion of starches. Now another way you can get starches in complex carbs are through beans. So there's lentils, black beans, garbanzo beans. We have edamame is a really good complex carb because it also has a lot of protein in it. Just make sure you get the organic variety, because their soybean is very much, a lot of them are genetically modified, which we don't know is so healthy for us. Let's see. So one of the staples in my diet are sweet potatoes. As a kid, I hated them, but as an adult, I absolutely love them. They are definitely a great thing to eat, like if you're hungry at 3 o'clock or you feel tired. I actually microwave these and cook them, and actually they're really good. I've actually mashed them with egg whites. You think it might be gross, but it actually, everybody's like, oh, why didn't I know about this? I make it into like an omelet, and I mash up sweet potato, and I put some cinnamon on it, and I swear it tastes just like French toast, and it's actually very filling too. Potatoes, not all potatoes are bad. Even the, you know, the white variety, the I get the new potatoes or the fingerling potatoes for my kids. Cut them up and use a little olive oil and just roast them. My kids absolutely love them. Corn is also a starch, but you want to be careful with corn too, because corn is also another product that is genetically modified a lot, and you can protect yourself from that by buying organic. Let's see, what else do we have here? I think we got them all. So one of the biggest mistakes I made in my diet was I was like an Atkins girl. That was how I lost weight. And, you know, I was pretty miserable because I wasn't eating complex carbs. I was tired a lot. And what I realized when I got older was that Atkins stuff wasn't working for me anymore. And it was only when I started reintroducing complex carbs into my diet that I started to feel better, and I started to actually develop muscle. I mean, people always ask me, that's like the million-dollar question, how do you get those abs? Honestly, I started eating. I started eating complex carbs. Honestly, when I start taking complex carbs out of my diet, I start to get like a fleshy belly. I start to get like a hanging skin. So if you're interested in building muscle and toning, you really do need to fuel your body, because that's exactly what complex carbohydrates are. They're there for energy for you. So take a look at what things you eat. I try to tell people not to get all their complex carbs from bready kind of items, only because I think you're going to find that when you choose other things, you're actually going to find that you're not craving more of the bready kind of items, and you're going to find that you are, you know, you're full. You feel great. You feel like you have energy. So I try to limit myself to about 2 grains a day, and then my other complex carb or starch is usually a non-grain variety. So I might have beans, I might have corn, I might have potatoes, or I might have, usually it's sweet potato that I usually put in. So hopefully that gives you a little explanation of that. Oh, how many times you should eat. You should probably have 2 to 3 or even 4 complex carbs a day, depending on what your goals are. I can't just do 2 complex carbs a day. I am miserable, I am tired, and my body usually does not look as good. Some people, they use 2 complex carbs or starches a day, and it works for them. So like I said, that's why I always say it comes back to trial and error for you. What works for you? And that's something that, you know, it's going to take time to write down your food log. How do you feel? Do you feel tired? Do you feel hungry? You know, that's why it's worth the investment, especially if we want a lifestyle. We don't want to be on a diet. And that's why we decided to do this group, because so many people do these groups and they give you a diet, they give you a shopping list, and they're like, okay, follow it for the week. Well, guess what? There's going to come a point when we're not around, you don't have your meal plan, you have to have a plan B, a plan C, or a plan D. And if you don't know what your daily diet should be composed of and how much of it, then, you know, you're not going to be able to think out of the box. And you're only going to live 2 kinds of lives, on a diet and off a diet. And we don't want that. We want you to live a lifestyle. And hopefully these videos and all this information is giving you the information that you need to start taking control of your life and your eating habits. So have a good day.